everyone, welcome to today's class. Today we are going to read a poem from Honeycomb book. So do you know what a shed is? Basically a shed is just like a rooftop. See, here is a picture of a shed. This is a cow shed. There are also sheds like tool shed, wood shed, etc. Basically, a shed is a small room that is away from the main house for storing or keeping things, animals, tools, and even vehicles. So we can say that a shed can be used for multi-purpose things. It is just like a storehouse. That means a shed is a small room that is used for storing things, storing old items or vehicles that is not in used. So today we are going to read a poem, and the name of the poem is The Shed. So this poem, The Shed, has been written by Frank Flynn. Frank Flynn was born in 1906 and he passed away on 2000 in Sydney, Australia. He was a Northern Territory-based Australian doctor, author, and missionary priest. Books written by him are The Living Heart in 1964, Northern Gateway in 1963. So in this poem, the poet describes an old shed that has not been opened for a long time. So now let us move on to the poem. The Shed. There is a shed at the bottom of a garden with a spider's web hanging across the door. The hinges are rusty and creak in the wind. When I am in bed, I lie and I listen. I will open the door one day. So here, the poet is saying that there is a shed located at the bottom of the poet's garden. That means there is a shed at the end of the poet's garden. And it is not used regularly. Why it's not used regularly? Because the door is locked. A spider's web is seen hanging on the door of the shed. Even the hinges or the iron joints of the door are rusty. When the wind blows, they make a creaking sharp sound. That is, when the wind blows, the creaking sound and the rusty hinges, it attracts the poet's attention. And now the poet is in a relaxed mood. He is in bed, and the narrator is very curious to open the door one day. Why he wants to open the door one day? Because he wants to see what is hidden inside the shed. So in the first stanza, the poet is telling that there is a shed at the end of the poet's garden. As the shed is locked for a longer period of time, so the poet could see that a spider's web is seen hanging on the door. Even the iron joints or the hinges of the door are rusty. And whenever the wind blows, a creaking sound comes from the door or from the shed. And that attracts the poet's attention towards the shed. And he wished to go into the shed one day. There's a dusty old window around at the side with 3 cracked panes of glass. I often think there's someone staring at me each time that I pass. I will peep through that window one day. Peep. Peep means look into. So on one side of the shed, there is a dusty old window and 3 of its window panes are broken. It is the worst condition. And whenever the poet passes through the shed, he feels that somebody is staring at him. So he wishes to look through the window one day. So in second stanza, the poet is telling that on one side of the shed there is a dusty window and 3 of its window panes are broken. And whenever the poet passes through the shed, he feels that somebody is staring at him. He feels that somebody is looking at him. And he wishes to look through the window one day. Third stanza. My brother says there is a ghost in the shed who hides under the rotten floorboards, and if I ever dare to set foot inside, he will jump out and chop off my head. But I will take a pic one day. My brother says there is a ghost in the shed who hides under the rotten floorboard. Rotten means decay, in a state of decay. And if I ever dare to set foot inside, dare means courageous, he will jump out and chop off my head. Chop means remove. But I will take a pic one day. Pic here means look into. So the poet's brother threatens him by saying that a ghost stays in the shed who hides himself under the rotten floorboards. Even the poet brother threatens him that if he ever goes into the shed, the ghost may jump and attack the poet. His brother even warns the poet that if he goes, then the ghost would chop off his head. However, this doesn't much frighten the poet. He still wished to go and look inside the shed one day. So here in the third stanza, the poet is saying that his brother usually threatens him that there is a ghost who hides himself inside the rotten floorboards. And if ever the poet goes into the shed, the ghost would attack him and chop his head. But the poet is not much frightened. He is still curious to go into the shed one day. I know that there isn't really a ghost. My brother tells lies to keep the shed for his den. There isn't anyone stirring or making strange noises, and the spider has been gone from his web. Since I don't know when, I will go into the shed one day soon, but not just yet. In fact, there is no ghost inside the shed. His brother used to tell him lies. His brother used to tell imaginative stories in order to keep the shed for his den. The poet is partially frightened, but he doesn't completely believe his brother. The poet no longer feels anyone is staring at him, or no longer he could hear any strange noises coming from the shed. Even the spider web is also no longer seen. Now the poet is having a plan to go through the broken window one day. At last, the poet then convinces that he will enter the shed one day soon. So in the last stanza, the poet is telling that in fact there is no ghost. The poet is now not frightened. He could no longer feel anyone staring at him, or he could no longer hear any strange voices. Even he could no longer see in the spider's web. Now he has a plan that he will go inside the shed one day soon. This is all about the poem. Thank you.